nasty car accident, and it killed 8 people. And 5 of those 8 people were our family. If Blue's not alive, I can't be here. Like, I need to be dead.
I knew your story, but hearing you say it, and telling me one-on-one is just an entire different reaction. So just don't mind. I'm just trying to collect myself a little bit. The way you speak about what you've gone through, I think was the most impactful for me besides what you've actually gone through. And I'm interested in hearing, how you've persevered through such a traumatic event. And for anyone that hasn't heard your story, I would love if you, told everyone a little bit about your experience, however you're most comfortable.
Well, before I get into the night of the car accident, can I just tell you about how cool my family is? I mean, they're in the painting behind me, but I met my wife, Kortni, when we were 15 years old, dude. Like high school sweethearts. We went to every school dance together. We won the award most likely to marry your high school sweetheart. Like we just always got along and just loved each other at a young age. And we ended up getting married. And my wife, Kortni, she always loved to help people. So she wanted to be a nurse. So she got into the nursing program at Dixie State University in southern Utah. And I was a pretty good basketball player in high school. So I got a scholarship to play basketball at that university. So we're just this young couple, married, just poor, like living off of a college basketball scholarship. And she's like working graveyard. It was awesome, but it was hard. But we're just like dirt poor. My senior year playing college basketball, we have our first kid named Riggins. Dave, have you ever seen the TV show Friday Night Lights?
Yeah, phenomenal show.
Okay, so Tim Riggins, he's in that show. So me and my wife love that show so much that we named our first child Riggins after Tim Riggins.
No, anyway, that's amazing.
Yeah, so we love that show. So it's me, Kortni Riggins, for a year, and then I graduate, and I'm like figuring out like what do I do? Kortni's set, like she has like a good nursing job, like she can get a job anywhere as a nurse. So she's like good with whatever. I'm trying to figure out like what am I doing now? Because basketball was my whole life up to this point. And I don't know if you like sports or not or anything, but like that was like everything I did. And now that it was over, it's like, well, what am I doing? So I take a job offer at my old high school to be a basketball coach, school teacher. So we move our family back to where we grew up, which is great because we're by, grandparents, friends, family. So it's good deal. We have 2 more kids. So we have Blue, another boy, and then we have our little daughter, Franki. And I'm from Utah. We got weird names for our kids, man. It's just how we do it. So, whatever.
No need to explain yourself.
Yeah, So we just have this, cute young little family. Kortni and I are done having kids. We're like, yeah, this is good. And then I get another job offer. So I get back to St. George, southern Utah, where I graduated from college. So I get this job offer from this place called Nets on Fire. And they're like, hey, we want you to be our skills trainer, put together AAU basketball teams, and just travel and coach. And I'm like, seriously? And they're like, yeah, and we'll pay you this much. I'm like, what? And they're like, and I'm like, all right, sign me up. So I tell Kortni, she's like, no shit. I'm like, yeah. So we moved back down to St. George, southern Utah, which is about 4 hours away. And we're just living the dream, dude. Kortni has this really cool nursing job she loves. I love my new job. And one of the other cool things about living down there was my brother Race, my older brother Race lived there. And I never really got to see, we're like 7 years apart. I never got to hang out with him as much as I wanted to as a kid, So I got to hang out with him in St. George a lot, which was great. His kids were babysitting my kids. And then my family, like we do every summer, my family does a little family reunion, family vacation. And this is when, dude, like you think you have life figured out, or you always think there's like this give and take. You're a nice person, you work hard, you set goals, and you're going to have ups and downs, but for the most part, life's going to reward you. You get back what you put out. And then like I don't know what to believe anymore. But so there's this family reunion, and David, I just took on this new job at Nets on Fire, and I just, I feel like I can't bail. I can't make it happen. So I decide not to go. So I tell my family, like, hey, me and Kortni and kids, we're not going. And then that weekend rolls around, weekend of the family reunion, and my wife Kortni's like, hey, you're just gonna be working all weekend. I'm just gonna take the kids. It'll be fun. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. I'm like, you should ask Race, my brother, like maybe he can ride with you guys because we're the same family. You're going to the same family reunion. It's a 4-hour drive. You might as well ride together, help each other with the kids. So she reaches out to my brother and she's like, hey, I'm going to the family reunion. If you and the kids want to come with us, that'd be cool. And Race is like, Keisha, so his wife and 2 of their kids couldn't go. But Race is like, I'll bring Ryder and we'll ride with you guys. That'll be perfect. I'm like, all right, cool. So my family went with my brother and his youngest kid to the family reunion. And then on that Sunday coming back, there was a terrible dust storm that just kicked up and just covered the highway. Just a big black wall. I'm sure it was terrifying. I don't know, but it caused a 22 car pileup. Just a brutal, nasty car accident, and it killed 8 people. And 5 of those 8 people were our family. So I lost my wife, Kortni, and my son, Riggins, and my daughter, Franki, and my brother, Race, and my nephew, Ryder. They were all gone. My son, Blue, our middle child, Blue, he survived the car accident. Not really sure how, but he had a couple cuts on his head and he had a broken hand. But they pulled him out of that car somehow, and I don't really know what he saw, what he experienced, or what he remembers, but Blue survived, and I remember because they said, hey, there's one survivor. We're life flighting him to the hospital in Salt Lake. So I'm 4 hours away, so I got to drive 4 hours to get there. And I remember, you have so many thoughts going through your head on that car ride. But I remember thinking, like, if the guy who called me, he said there's just one survivor. So I don't even know if it was from my car or just in general. I don't even know whose kid it is. They just said 3-year-old kid, blonde hair, blue eyes. And my 3-year-old had blonde hair, blue eyes. So I was just kind of hoping it was Blue. But I don't know. And I remember thinking, dude, like, if Blue's not alive, like, I can't be here. Like, I need to be dead. Like, I remember having that thought. And it's weird because you're so broken. So you just kind of flip through denial, anger, shock, bargaining. You just kind of flip through all those emotions. But every 20 minutes, that thought would pop into my head. Like, if this isn't Blue, like, I'm putting a bullet in my head. Like, I'm done. But I get to the hospital and Blue's alive, and spent the night with my son in my arms, and never saw the rest of my family again. That was July 25th, 2021. So that was about 20 months ago. We're coming up on the 2-year mark. And you want me to keep going, or should I stop? Or
No, I'm just trying to, like, it's like I knew your story, but hearing you say it, and telling me one-on-one is just a entirely different reaction. So just don't mind me. I'm just trying to collect myself a little bit.
And then, like, dude, I never seen my dad cry in my entire life. And like that night that night, and so I'm in the hospital holding my kid, and I think I just stared at the wall for however long. I just, you're just in complete shock, and then the grief hits you in waves. And like my dad was in the hospital room with me that night, and my mom was too. And my dad would get up to the bathroom, and I don't know if he didn't think I could hear him, but he was just wailing, just crying, sobbing, like sounds you didn't even think a human could make, really. And it was my dad. And it like reality, it just is weird. Like it it's hard for it to set in, but when it does, it's a real son of a bitch. And then it leaves. And that's a weird thing with acceptance. Like when people think of the stages of grief, like anger, denial, bargaining, depression, accept, like whatever it is, I don't even know the order because it doesn't fucking matter, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Sorry if I didn't ask you about language, but
Don't worry about it. Let it loose.
but dude, like the thing with back to the acceptance thing, like okay, it's not like you just do these stages of grief and then you get to acceptance and like, oh, like I'm done. I did. It's not like you graduated high school. Like you throw your hat in the air, like we're done with the trauma. No, like you're screwed. The trauma is going to be there your whole life. And the weird thing with acceptance is like, David, I have days where I can accept it. I can. I can get out of bed and like, okay, this is my reality. It happened. What can I do? What can I control? What's in my power of control? Those are my good days. Those are the best days that I can have. Or how can I make this terrible situation good? What good can come from it? Let's try to do that because that's in our power. But dude, like other days and other moments, you can't accept it, man. I don't want to accept it. It's not fair. It's bullshit. And we weren't perfect people, but like we were good people, man. I was a good husband. I was a good father. Like innocent kids. You kidding me? Like it doesn't make any sense. And on the days I can't accept it, those are the shitty days, dude, where you're just feeling sorry for yourself. Why me? And you're just kind of wrapped in the grief, and it's really shitty.
So on those days, what have you found yourself doing to get through the days that you don't feel like you accept it?
Well, I used to drink, or drugs, or I'd take like I'd call my brother, sister, parents, in-laws, whoever, like, hey, can you come watch Blue? I'd take sleeping pills at 1 in the afternoon, just like I'm done for the day. I used to punch myself. I just right here, I just unload on myself. I thought I could knock myself out, but I don't. I can't. I couldn't. But it would just get all black eyish. But then at least it'd get this pain would get my mind off the other pain, but not really. But like I thought maybe it could. It was not
Right.
good. Not good. But
No.
now what I do, I talk. I tell people, man, like, dude, it hurts, man, and it doesn't get better. Time doesn't heal all wounds. That's bullshit. Like, it hurts, man. And when you tell people, there's just something about it, dude. I can't even really explain it, but all I know is I tell someone I hurt, and I feel less hurt. um, and I do things for other people. So instead of drinking, I would hop on my one wheel and I'd go downtown Salt Lake and I'd hand out food to homeless people, or I'd someone just lost their kid. I'd get cookies and go to their house and just anything I could to just do something that wasn't about me. And dude, the thing with trauma, it makes you so selfish, dude. It makes you so selfish because trauma is you're just thinking about your pain, and so you don't really have time to think about anyone else's pain. Like why even give a shit? Like I'm hurting really bad. And so what I've learned is if I don't think about me, we is greater than me. And what I found, it's the whole Jesus thing, honestly. It's the story of Jesus, which is ironic for me because I don't even believe in God necessarily. But yeah, it's like help other people, love your neighbor, love your enemy, and those two things. So back to your question, I tell people and I try to help people. And that's kind of what what's helped. But and then I guess I just kind of I'm learning to be easier on myself and be like, Mace, you've been doing good. You can have a shitty day. Like, yeah, you can be mad and just cry and just feel it. And I've gotten better at just being sad and then just being done being sad and trying to do something good.
You know, you mentioned when when you first heard the news and you were trying to wait on the news to see if your son survived, and if you were saying if he didn't, you wouldn't be here anymore. And coupled with the idea of innocent kids, your whole family. What is the shift of your perspective comparatively to, or even when you found out that your son was alive, and the why me questions? How did this shift your perspective on life, like the unexplainability of why something like this would happen?
So a lot of people ask me, like, what have you learned? And there's few things that I've actually learned, like that I had no clue about before. And like I actually like wow, like something brand new that I learned. There's a couple, but it's more of the perspective. It's just shifted my whole perspective. And it's not necessarily like we before me. I knew that. I grew up playing basketball. I knew the importance of teamwork, but now I see it totally different way. So I think it's just the whole perspective shift. Like, let me give you a quick story of like how my perspective shifted. So this was probably just after the funeral with my family. So this is pretty quick after the accident. So I'm still in it pretty good. And I'm driving and I see a homeless family to my right as I'm turning. And dad, mom, couple kids running around behind him, corner of like a gas station. Guy has a sign up. And I just remember like, dude, that looks awesome. Like you that looks like heaven on earth to me. Like I would do anything to be homeless with my family. That looks like Christmas morning. It looks awesome. That's how, and I'm in a nice car. I'm driving to like my, decent apartment. Like it's nice. Like it's not a shithole. Like I have nice things, but I would trade any of it for that guy to be that guy for 1 hour. Like, yeah, like how dark is that? Yeah. So that's how and then like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't think that's dark. I think that's real.
Yeah.
That's very real.
So, and then
You know?
the things people complain about is hard sometimes. Oh
yeah.
And then like everyone's hurting, dude. Like I used to before the accident, I used to think we're all happy and there's just a couple people here and there that, aren't and we'll help them when we can. But now it's like I think we're all kind of miserable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's like a couple people that are happy and they're just annoying and, and they're like, I don't know. That's just how I see it. Like you're a comedian. Like one of my favorite comedians is Bill Burr. And he has this saying.
First of all, I'm sorry, I got to cut you off there. Do not put my name too close to comedian and not even near Bill Burr. So, Bill, if you're listening, I apologize on his behalf.
But like he always says, like we're all eating a shit sandwich. That's the honest to God truth. Yeah. I think he's 100% right. Like we all, and maybe it's just the world I've entered because all the messages I get are sad stories. So maybe it's just what consumes me now. But like, dude, it is. We're all eating a shit sandwich and just try to be great. Maybe there's some good bread around it and some lettuce and tomato, maybe. But like, yeah, you got to eat that thing.
Yeah, and it tastes like it looks. Yeah. It tastes like shit. Yeah. And, I think it makes me think in regards to how you say some days you accept it, some days you don't. I think, I feel like there's a misconception, maybe I'm completely off with this, about being happy that it's constant, that we're as humans, that you're seeking that, the eternal happiness while we're living. I don't think that's possible. I think you can live with joy, but I think the happiness ebbs and flows and you're constantly scaling at different peaks. Like you feel like you're happy, but then there's another peak. So we all have pain, and it's tough to hear stories like yours because it's easy to compare the pain. You know what I mean? When you've gone through something like you've gone through, and from my shoes, I'd be like, I can't. What would complaining ever do? Considering talking to this man Mason and what he's overcome, what he's still going through.
Yeah,
But then
but
again,
like,
the worst thing you've ever gone through is the worst thing you've ever gone through. So is it relative?
yes, and that's okay. So like in the world of like mental illness and trauma and grief, like you're right. Like we do this weird thing, especially guys. Well, maybe I don't know, but like we compare it, and it's not good. It's something we have to get away from, and I think it's part of the reasons why a lot of guys don't talk about their pain. It's like, okay, for example, let's say you read my story. Let's say someone gets divorced, and then they read my story, and they're like, oh, well, I shouldn't. What do I have to complain about? A word? Actually, no. Like a divorce is really shitty and hard, and you should be upset, and you should cry if you need to cry. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just kind of robs that. Like,
Yep.
no, dude, you're getting it all wrong. Like, I know mine's bad, but you're hurting too. You need therapy too. You need to tell someone too. Like, yeah, and it's a weird thing, and it's bad for both ends. It's bad for you if you compare it to my thing, and then you think you shouldn't struggle. That's bad. That's not true. And then it's also bad for
Mm.
me because for me it makes me feel alone. Like no one gets me. Like no, hey, I'm not. I don't want to be alone over here. Like no, I'm with you guys. So it's a really divisive thing. I think in the world of mental health is when we do that weird like measuring stick thing. Like what are we doing to each other? It's not good for anyone. And I get it. Like we want to be polite. Like I understand it. Like hey, I get what they're saying to me. Like it's not. I haven't gone what you've gone through. Like oh, okay, I get it. Like very polite. But at the end of the day, we're both hurting, and we both need
Hmm.
the same things to get through it. Probably. So let's talk about those things and help each other through this shit instead of acting like no one gets anyone and we shouldn't talk about anything. Because no, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're saying this kind of, I don't want to say, maybe this is the wrong word, but like a shame of due to the comparison of what you're feeling isn't enough to feel shitty about, and then that's why maybe they're not expressing it.
Yeah.
Am I understanding that?
Well, and it goes for like, let's say you have multiple kids, like you're a family and you have multiple kids, and let's say one kid's a 4.0 student, like straight A's, and the other kid gets a 3.0. That kid doesn't feel like he should be validated. Why? Because he's comparing himself to the 4.0 kid. Like, my parents aren't going to care. I have a 3.0. No, they're probably proud of you, dude. Or you know, like it doesn't just go for
Yeah.
trauma. Like that's just how our mind works with anything, and it's not good. It shuts people down. It doesn't allow them to communicate their emotions, and other problems start to fester and happen because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I forget who said it, but comparison is the thief of joy, and that applies across,
Ooh, yeah, man. Okay, so
anything
let's
you're going
flip
through.
that. Let's make this work with trauma. So comparison is the thief of joy. So if we did that with trauma, so comparison and trauma, what are we robbing ourselves of?
Comparison is the thief of grief. I only wanted to say that just because it
Dude,
rhymes,
I
but
think we're on to something, dude. No, I'm not kidding, Dave. That sounds legit. Like that might be a t-shirt one day. No, there's something there though.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a really interesting thought. I haven't really, honestly, haven't thought of it like that. And when the idea of it, you just explain how it puts you on an island, it reminds me of, I watched some clips here and there, and someone said she doesn't like saying, "Oh, I can't imagine," because that kind of puts the other person on an island, even though they're doing it out of politeness.
Yeah.
I think the semantics is very sensitive when it comes to speaking to someone who has gone through what you've gone through, and you know where it's coming from, but then could have the flip idea that it puts you on an island. So I think I love what you're saying in regards to we're all going through pain, and it is a little hard to look at what other people, again, to the comparison, to look at what other people have gone through and not compare it, because I think of what I've gone through, then I think about what you've gone through, but at the same time, it doesn't devalue what you feel. I think whatever the hell you're feeling, you gotta feel it without the thought of what other people are going
Yeah.
through. The only thing I can think of, like if I'm thinking of what other people have gone through, maybe I can look at it from the lens of gratefulness. You know what I mean? In a sense that, yeah, I lost my dad, but I still have X, Y, Z. But then again, you're still comparing it, so I don't know. Maybe it's a fine line regardless.
Yeah. I actually have a question for you about your dad, but Um, before
Yeah.
before that, one more thing I want to say about like when people tell me I have no idea what it's like to be you, no one knows what it's like to be you. I get it. Like I understand where you're coming from. You're trying to be polite, and it's a heavy story, so I get it. But another thing, okay, one thing that we hate, and when I say we, I mean me and Sam Josie and our 1090 team, is the victim thing, like being the victim. Like what happened to me is terrible,
Mm.
but that doesn't mean I just get to lay in bed the rest of my life and not like life goes on. Like Robert Frost, one of my favorite Robert Frost quotes, life goes on. And you still got to show up without excuses and get to work basically. Um but like when someone tells me no one knows what it's like to be you, that feeds the victim like thought process, because now what you're telling this kid or whoever is, oh, no one knows what it's like to be me. Well, then I can kind of get special treatment or do whatever I want because you don't get it. You don't get how hard it is to be me. So you know what I mean? And it gets terrible.
Yeah.
It gets bad. It doesn't help anyone. And so it feeds that. I do think that type of conversation does lead to that victimhood, which isn't good for anyone either. So
Yeah, and I think when you have the mentality of victimhood, it kind of leads to complacency. It doesn't lead to action. And I feel like what I'm taking from what you're doing, you found this outlet of helping other people, but by helping other people, you're moving, you're taking steps, you're moving forward in many ways. So you're not just sitting there. And I feel
yeah.
like when maybe if you take that position of this happened to me and getting special treatment, then you're not motivated to keep going. And it's hard though. Like, how do you? Because I mean, what do you say to someone that just doesn't want to keep going? And I'm sure you've been at that place, as you kind of explained earlier. Like, you don't want to do anything, but how do you help people find that reason to keep going if they don't have their son? Like a son, you have a son, so I feel like that's maybe a big motivating
Yeah.
factor for you to continue on, as you explained earlier. What do you tell someone? And it's a very general statement that is in it right now that doesn't that is hearing one thing and going out the other ear and on wanting to move forward because they feel like it's over.
So I think uh, this isn't a cop out answer. I'll give you an answer. I'm gonna share a story with you, but I honestly think it's gonna vary depending on the person and the trauma and all that matters. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
think there's a cookie cutter answer, but let me just share a beautiful story with you real quick. So I get a lot of messages through Instagram. And when I say a lot, I probably mean 18 a day. So not like,
Oh wow, that's a lot.
or maybe that's
That's
a
a lot
lot.
to
I don't
me.
know. But like, I don't know. Not like, anyway. So I get a lot of these messages. And this one lady's messaging me. She just lost three family members in Europe. So she's in Europe. Um, and I'm not going to get too specific because she probably doesn't want anyone to know. But she lost three family members in an accident, and she's really just struggling, obviously. And she's talking about how to handle the funeral. And I'm trying all my stuff, David. I'm trying these quotes and what my therapist has told me and things me and you have already talked about on this pod. Like I'm throwing everything at her. Nothing, like she is just done. Like she not doing good. Just talking about the pain and can't get out of bed and doesn't want to live. All this stuff. Terrible stuff. No, everything's bouncing off of her. Nothing's working. And then one day, and I'm like, what the hell? And so I just think about, I'm rereading our story. I start from the top and I just kind of reread it. And dude, I text her back, and her last message was, I'm in the hospital. I'm hurting so bad. And and I said, I'm so proud of you. You're so strong. And it got to her. It was the first thing that I said that finally made an impact, that actually like helped her, I think. And you could just tell, and her response was beautiful. And I think that was the best thing anyone's ever told her since that tragedy with her family. I think a lot of people struggling through this life that they have, or trauma, they look like a complete fuck up. They look like they're idiots. Like they have addictions now, and they ruin relationships because they have trust issues and they just look like, and maybe they are a fuck up. I don't know. But like, dude, maybe you tell them like, and again, like we don't want to feed the victimhood and we don't want to like support bad behavior. I get it. But maybe every once in a while you're like, hey, I'm proud of you, man. Like, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for giving it another day. And actually, like, I think that helped her a lot. So
Wow.
I don't know, maybe, but that's just one story for one person. I think for another person, something else may have helped. And that's what makes trauma really hard. And again, back to the comparing thing, that's why it's impossible to compare it because it's all just can't compare it.
I mean, that's a fucking beautiful story, and it made me. I got flooded with so many people in my lives and life, and even even me. Sometimes I feel like I'm not. I don't take. Sometimes I don't take. Not this is a weird transition, but compliments the best, and I think a lot of people sometimes don't have support in their lives and don't have that words of encouragement. It's like that corny cliche, like you never know how much a smile is going to affect someone. Just like walking down the street,
Yeah.
it's like those little words of encouragement can boost someone. Like just the words that you gave her could have led her to so much action to break through and make those adjustments in her life because she just needed someone. Maybe she didn't even realize it's someone to tell her that it's okay in a sense, and that regardless of how you feel right now, you're doing what you can do and you will get out of it.
Yeah.
So it's remarkable that those simple words can have such a massive impact, and I love that. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's huge.
Thanks, man.
You know?
I have a question for you.
Sorry. Yeah, what's up? Don't hit me too hard.
So you lost your dad 9/11. So maybe, all right, let me just explain my side first, and then maybe you'll understand what I'm trying to ask you. So, like, I lost 5 people at once, and it's weird because if we talk about all 5 together, like as a group, like they all went to the other side together, they're over there together, it's kind of like, it's awful, but it's somewhat kind of manageable. Like, okay, but dude, when I think about them individually, like as an individual, like my precious baby girl Franki, like when I think about them individually, I sink like a stone, dude. Like I can't. It rips my heart out. But and it kind of bugs me sometimes when people just say you lost 5. Like no, like I lost. They were each people, their own individual self. Like maybe we should have had 5 funerals to show you, but like I don't know. It kind of gets it. It's frustrating me sometimes. So your dad dies in this terrible 9/11. Does it bother you? Like, does he just get grouped in with all the other people that died that day? And for you, does it kind of get like you didn't get your due? Like, hey, like I know a lot of people died, but I don't even know if I'm making any sense anymore. But like,
No, I get it.
is
I
it
get it.
frustrating you that he
You're making
died with
sense.
so many people that he kind of just got like he's just part of the large group? I know to your family and everything, it doesn't hit you that way. But does that understand what I'm trying to ask you?
Yeah, no, I get it. I think I haven't, you kind of haven't really thought of that too much, but in regards to, I'm glad you asked that because it's a new thought. I mean, this is maybe I don't want to sound like kind of what you said. I don't want to sound like a cop out, but I think it happened the way it happened, and it is the way it is. I don't know how else to handle it, but I think as to what you said, we handled it individually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not in a way that we weren't thinking of all the thousands of lives that got lost, but I wouldn't say as we didn't get our due. We've still grieve in many ways, even over 20 years later. So yeah.
So this happened 20 years ago. So like I'm
Yeah,
about
plus
20 months in. So like I'm 20 months into my life sentence. You're 20 years into your life sentence. Like tell me like what do I need to know 20 years in?
I was going to ask you that in regards to where you are 20 months because we have such different. You mentioned earlier about the trauma, how what has happened is such a variable, and what's going on in your life, it's such a different way of how we grasp things, the timing in our life. So again, back on what you said, it's a blanket statement for answering such a question because it's so individual. I just know you're going to evolve. I'm sure if you looked back, and it's partially the question I wanted to ask you, if you look back from day 1 to 20 months, I'm sure you've clearly changed in so many ways. And I think that's going to continue to evolve as time goes on. And I don't know what that means. I don't know how you're going to evolve. That's for you to find out and for you to adjust, as you've been doing remarkably, if you ask me. I think, as life changes, as you change as a person, as time goes on, there's more contemplation. Things happen in life and you reflect on different things. You make new realizations the more you speak about it. So things are going to evolve. And it really stuck out to me in how you said it doesn't get better, because I feel that, maybe it doesn't get better because it's a pain that is always going to be with you. But I don't know. I think you're growing in such a remarkable way, and I commend you for what you're doing, the courage it takes to talk to me, the courage it takes to share your story to the world, because you're making such a difference. And I know you say you don't have to go to therapy because by you helping other people, you're helping yourself. But I'm kind of going on a rant right now. I just think you're going to continually change. You're just going to continually change. I don't have an answer for you. You're going to figure that out. But I think as time goes on, you're going to feel different. You're going to see things different. I mean, tell me what have the last 20 months been like? What have you noticed in a shift in yourself from when it happened to now?
So I think what you do, you get stronger, so you get better at carrying the pain, but it's still the same amount of pain. And it's weird, and
Yeah.
you're right, because if I do compare myself where I was 20 months ago, dude, I was a zombie. Or at least that's how my parents and friends describe. I was just couldn't even, yeah. So I'm definitely doing better, but I loved your answer because I hate the people that are like, oh, like XYZ. Like, dude, you don't know. You don't know. So
No, I
thanks
have
for your
no idea.
honesty. And I like, do you ever get okay, so let me just tell you another story.
Please. Yeah, I love it.
So I go to Austin, Texas for because I'm a public speaker, motivational, whatever you call it. I don't know. I go speak places. So I'm doing this speaking thing in Austin, Texas. And it, like, dude, it's fun, man. We get there, like, they fly us out first class. I've never been first class, never even thought about it. They fly us out first class, like, good hotel. They take us out, like, just cool. And I do my public speaking thing. It goes very well. And then I'm just having fun. Like, I'm having fun. And okay, so, and you can probably relate to this, but okay. Car accident with my family, they die. And you're just in bed and you're just miserable and you kind of want to die, but then you can't die because I have my son Blue, and you're just kind of like you're just in this weird like limbo. And I was in that limbo for a long time. Like I didn't know what I was doing. And sorry, dude, I'm like losing my. What were we talking about? I can't even remember.
It's okay. Yeah. You were sharing a story about public
Oh yeah.
speaking, and you were in the hotel room.
So, dude, I'm like loving my time in Texas, and then the guilt, dude, like the survivor's guilt, like boom, like you're a piece of shit, like you know the only reason any of this is happening because your family's dead. So you're glad that your family's dead, and you're just bombarded with like these thoughts and voices, and it just shuts you down. And so you get shut down, and you just don't want to do anything, and then you have guilt from that, like, oh, like you're just gonna lay in bed all day. Your son Riggins is dead. He would love to go ride his bike today and have the sun on his face and scrape his knee. Like he would love that. You're not gonna do anything? Like how dare you? So then you try to do something and you put on the pretend happy face, and then you actually have a good day, and then you feel like shit. Like I don't.
Right.
And so that is kind of my life. But as the 20 months has been unfolding, I'm able to stay away from that. I'm having longer moments of joy before I hit the guilt. And so what I'm hoping maybe by the
Right.
20-year mark is you just get really good at balancing those two emotions together at the same time all the time, and you're able to just function very
Mm-hmm.
well. And right now I'm getting better. I'm able to function pretty good, but then I have like, dude, that survivor's guilt is no joke, man. That thing is nasty. And it's honestly like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I'm going to feel guilty if I lay in bed all day and be miserable, and I'm going to be guilty and feel bad if I go have a good day. So it's like, pick your poison.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, you might as well fucking do what you want to do
Yeah.
and what you need to do. And there's a guy, an awesome comedian and I guess philosophizer, Rodney Norman, who was discussing that. Is like, there's it's a very common thing. I think what you're experiencing, I've heard multiple times about that guilt, and I think the way to honor them is to live your life in happiness and live through them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And if you are damned if you do, damned if you don't, you might as well do it that way. You know
I
what I
think you're
mean?
right.
And I think the one thing and this is a personal truth, so I'm not saying I disagree, but I think it does get better. And I'm not saying the pain gets easier or if it does or doesn't. I think the way you explained it to me is a way that it gets better is that you get better at managing those hurdles. You get better at managing those moments of where you're not accepting it, where maybe not accepting it might keep you in bed for a week, but then maybe 10 months down the road, that same feeling, you'll be in bed for 3 days. And then maybe another couple of years or months, whatever maybe it'll knock you out for a couple hours and you're able to jump back on your feet. So in my sense, I think that is where it gets better, is that you get a little bit, there's gaps of how long it really knocks you out, gets a little bit shorter, and your reactions and your emotions, you get a little bit better at handling that. Does that
No,
make sense?
I couldn't have said it any better. I think that's what I was trying to say, but I'm like, I can't say it very good. And then
No,
like,
I think you said everything brilliantly.
no, yeah, I think no, you're spot on. Uh, I think that's 100%.
But like it doesn't. But it doesn't say. I'm not saying like the pain. Like the pain's still gonna be fucking
Well,
pain. And
yeah,
it's
and I think the other way that maybe it gets better as time goes by is because I've noticed this too, is because when it first happened, every memory is just heartbreak. It just ruins your day. And then as time goes on, the memories of them are actually like you smile, like, "Wait, that was a fun trip," or "That was fun taking Riggins to his basketball games," and you kind of enjoy and are grateful for those good times you had. So I've experienced that, like these terrible memories that used to be sad are now actually sometimes, not all the time, but they're actually sometimes fun to talk about now, and I cherish them
right.
versus always just being miserable. So I'm hoping over time all those memories will just turn into happy, good. I'm so grateful because the one thing I am grateful is we had a great life. We were great parents to our kids. At least the life we had together with the time we had was great. That gives me a lot of joy. So there's that.
Well, man, let me ask you a question. This is kind of a quick transition, but what's your belief on afterlife? Like, do you have a stance on what you think happens after we die? Has anything shifted?
Yeah, big time. I actually posted a really cool video on my Instagram today about his dad. He's talking to his little daughter, and the daughter's like, "Is there a God?" And he's like, "I don't know." And he's like, and no one knows. And then the little girl's like, um, "Sophie know or someone knows." And he's like, "No, she doesn't know. She has faith, and faith is good, but no one knows." And she's like, "Well, what about Jesus?" And he's like, "Yeah, Jesus is great. I love that guy. Listen to him." And then she's like, "But is Jesus God?" And he's like, "I don't know." He's like, "I have my opinion, but I might be wrong. I don't want, who am I to change your opinion?" And I kind of butchered that. It was much better said than that, but it was a really beautiful video clip that I posted because that if my son, who he's getting to the age where we're going to start having those questions and conversations. I think he's almost 6, and then 7 and 8, they're just going to get really curious. But that's how I would handle that conversation with my son, and that's truly, honestly, how I feel. I am in love with the story of Jesus. I think the story of Jesus and what he stood for, his message of service and love your neighbor and love your enemy and cast the beam out of your own eye, and the golden rule, treat other people how you want to be treated. Like, all that stuff is, yeah, like, love it. But is he God? Like, I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not going to say I know. I have no idea. And I don't like, I don't know how long your episodes are, but um, I went. I've got into mushrooms. Um, they
Ooh.
they pretty much, and I'm not I'm not trying to make money or anything. I'm just trying to help people. So take it for what it is. I'm not trying to sell anyone mushrooms. I'm just saying
We'll
mushrooms.
put a
Like
disclaimer.
David, I'm not kidding you. Mushrooms, like I think it cured my PTSD.
Wow.
Like, and it helped my depression and my guilt a lot. Anyway, why are we talking about mushrooms?
I've
again?
heard that. Oh yeah, no. Well,
Oh,
I mean, apparently that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Please
No,
go
but
on.
dude,
I'll go down a rabbit hole of
that's what I'm
mushrooms. 'cause
saying. Like, I don't know.
it's
I don't
interesting
know
to
if this
me.
is the right turn we want to take in this podcast, but back to your spiritual religious question. I've had beautiful, incredible mushroom trips that I felt really close to my family and have gotten really beautiful answers and or experiences about stuff like that. I think it's just more personal. I don't know if that's how it is. I think it's a theory, but
Mhm.
I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole today. But the whole I just struggle because, like, why does God help Elizabeth find her car keys, but he can't help my family in a sandstorm? I don't know. A lot of it doesn't make sense to me. And I get it. Like, that's the whole point of the faith thing. I get all the scriptures. People send me them. Like, I get it. I just struggle with it. But my son goes to church with his friends and my mom. Like, I don't have an issue with it. It's just not for me. I have a lot of questions. If
Yeah.
there is a God, I don't believe in a God that controls things. I don't believe in a God that intervenes. If you're telling me there's a God that created everything and he loves everyone and he just like, good luck, I did the best I could, but he can't manipulate anything. Like, I can get behind that. And good things and bad things just happen to good and bad people, and it's chaos. Like, sign me up. But this guy that's this puppet master, I got a lot of questions for that guy.
Yeah, I think. Excuse me. I'd have a lot of questions for that too, if that's the case. But I think it goes back to. I agree. I don't know. Nothing's absolute. I think if you have faith in things and that helps you out, that's great.
Yeah.
And we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out one way or another.
Yeah,
at some point. Whether it's something or nothing, I have no idea, and that freaks me out sometimes. But this is where we are now, and I don't want to get down the rabbit hole too much right now. But I had for anyone listening, take this with a grain of salt, not condoning it. Just this is my experience. I did mushrooms over the weekend, and holy shit, that was a whole nother experience in itself. There's a lot of studies coming out, maybe not, I think more microdosing and taking it in small doses. There's been a lot of studies that are coming out. I'm not referencing any, do your own research, that has been helping with a lot of people with anxiety and depression and this or that. So I think that is coming out into the light more often than others. So it's interesting to hear that you've had benefits from it. And again, anyone listening, do your own research. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but the experience I had.
I'm not. And like, listen, like I'm a public speaker. I speak at a lot of elementary schools and high schools. So like, don't do drugs. I'm not saying like.
Yes, of course.
But
of
like,
course.
dude,
this is personal conversation
for sure. But like, there's like, dude, and this is what I tell. It's funny because me and my co-host of our podcast, we're from Utah, which is a very like conservative Christian, and so he's like, we can't talk about mushrooms on our podcast. I'm like, what do you like? If we're trying to help people and mushrooms help my PTSD, I think we should be telling everyone. So like, we don't see eye to eye on it, but dude, like, yeah, I don't, and I'm not an expert either, but I'm just throwing that out there. So take it for what it's worth. Really helped me.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think some people would take it like mislead on when someone says this helped me. I think it's good to take it as that. Okay, that helped you.
Yeah.
Might not help someone else. Might not. It's just but it's I think it's important to put out there if something helped you personally.
Yeah. Not for you. Well, that's how I am with religion. Like, if religion helps you, great, man. It's not for me though.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think that's it's okay to to be disagreeable with our own personal truths, but it's also important to be open-minded, to have our mind changed. And I think I think there's a fine balance there. But holy shit, was this last weekend with this trip that I did was something else. And we didn't do it recreationally for fun. We did it with intentions of finding a little bit more spirituality, and it definitely got to another level. Maybe I'll tell you about that off the mic.
We totally can. And like I called my therapist. I'm like, hey, I have a babysitter. I have the night to myself. Like, walk me through this. Like, how do I get the best experience? And it was cool. And you can do it with a guide. A lot of people do it with a guide. But anyway, interesting stuff. Sure.
Yeah, that's it's interesting to say the least how that even affects our reality in a sense. But listen, man, I want to ask you one last question in regards before we get out of here. How are you doing today? You're 20 months in. How are you doing today?
So I woke up and I cried, and then I washed my face, and then I woke Blue up, got him ready for school. And the weather's getting better here, so he was excited. Dropped Blue off at school, came back here, hopped on the podcast. And then once this podcast is over, I'm going to go to the gym, and then I'm doing another podcast at 1, and then I'm picking up my son at 3. So I try to stay busy and get my message out and try to help people, keep my mind off myself. Maybe, I'm playing basketball later with some buddies. I got a good little day put together. Not too bad.
That sounds like I'm sorry I'm here to ruin it.
No, seriously. When I said that earlier, I'm not lying to you. Like, this podcasting and public speaking that is my therapy. So if you didn't like the podcast, David, I don't really care. I got my therapy session.
Nah, man, I love it. I love what you're doing, and I'm I've taken a lot from this, and I'm hoping anyone that's going through whatever right now, just without comparing, as we said, right. I think you've shared a lot of good anecdotes and personal experiences that are applicable to so many people, no matter what the hell they're going through. So, dude, I really want to thank you. I appreciate you doing this. I can't wait to get your story out there. And before we do bounce out, do you want to feel free if you got anything else upcoming and want to plug your podcast? I'll put the links in the below so people can find you as well.
I'm terrible at that kind of stuff, but we have a 1090 Instagram, and it's the number 10. So you put in the number 10 and then spell out 90. I think we have a TikTok. My producer guy of our podcast, he runs our Instagram, and I think he does TikTok too. I'm not sure, but so you can find us on those. And then, I'm not great at like promoting myself. It's like the most awkward thing. Like, we're out there.
I'll plug it.
This is the way I see it. This is the way I see it, Dave. And I love it because I think we get genuine followers this way instead of just a numbers game. But like, the way I see it is, if you really care, you really need 1090, and you really want to find it, then you'll find it. You know what I mean? Like, you'll get it.
For sure.
So that I don't get too worried about subscribe, and I don't think I've ever used the word subscribe on my podcast ever. I just, it is what it is.
I love that. Well, I'll push it a little more than you are, then I'll take that. If you guys do want to find him a little bit easier, I'll put the links in the bottom of the show description so you can find Mason and his podcast, and hopefully y'all check it out. But Mason, excuse me, for real, I want to thank you again for being here. It's an honor to share this space with you, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. And for anyone listening, I hope you got a lot out of that, because I know I did, in another episode of Dead Talks. Until next time, ciao. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.